So we're going over Luis's truck. We're installing some light bars on this today. He's got an amber and a white light bar we're gonna put on this. It's nice to go over gear that I didn't actually have to pay for. And I think the Rangers are cool because they are, in my opinion, one of the cooler trucks in the market for the overland crowd. This thing's a turbocharged 4-cylinder. I've seen it on the sand dunes when I've gone out there with Luis, and this thing rips. It's a really cool truck, and in my opinion, it shouldn't be overlooked as far as an overland build goes. Luis is going for more of like a sleeper look, Raptor look, and so we're gonna install these things. Tell us a little bit more about these light bars.
Okay, so both of these light bars are from M&R Automotive. They are both 30 inches long. The white one's got 11,760 lumens, and the amber's got 5,500 lumens. Both of these lights combined, and even by themselves, should be more than enough.
These kits come with a separate mounting bracket for the top, a separate for the bottom. And so if you're buying one of these specifically, if you want just the top or just the bottom, make sure you order it that way on the website because the brackets are different. It's not just the same thing. So there's no drilling, no cutting required. These are compatible with both the OEM grill from Ford, and these are also compatible with the Ranger style grill like Luis has on this. So the wiring harness is a third-party setup on this. You can buy different ones. They're pretty much all the same anyway. All it is a couple relays and a couple switches. Luis is going to install these switches on his fuse panel cover because it's a cheaper piece of plastic. I don't ever recommend taking one of the more expensive pieces of the dash and drilling into it because you're going to change your mind or you're going to get a Switch Pro or something like that. The firewall grommet on the Ford Rangers is kind of hard to access, and it's pretty tightly wound with like electrical tape and the rubber piece. So we're going to cut the wiring, and from the inside we're going to push it out with like a fish or a metal rod through into the engine bay, and then that'll make it to where we can just resolder it inside there because you're not going to get all of this stuff through that grommet, whether you're going from the engine side to the cab or from the cab to the engine side. So the easiest way to do this is to just cut it and rewire it under the hood. The biggest pain on this installation is going to be taking the grill off again because when Luis installed it the first time, he was complaining to me the next day about it, and it took him a while to do. So we're going to pull that off, and then everything else should bolt up with factory hardware. Shouldn't be a big deal. Mounting the switches, drilling through plastic is probably going to be one of the longest processes, which isn't going to take very long. If you've never used amber lights before on your vehicle, once you use them, you probably won't go back. You'll want to have at least some of them on your truck because it almost gives like a daylight effect. Pretty much no matter what light bar you buy, it's not legal to run on the road, but we all do it. So what you need to know is just turn these things off if you see other headlights because you're going to blind oncoming traffic. It's dangerous, and it might be a police officer, so make sure and turn your lights off. But generally speaking, whenever you're driving through Colorado or you're driving through places with a lot of wild game, having something like this is going to give you an advantage because you're going to see it before you have to slam on the brakes. And with our big heavy vehicles, when you're outfitted for an overland camping trip or something like that, then you're going to have that much more of a stopping time. So it's good to have your lights on when you're driving and just be able to see things ahead. We're not going to do a full install on this on his Ranger just because it is so straightforward. All we're going to have to do is cut the wire and set this thing up. I just want to go over this because I think it's cool to see the aftermarket support going for some of these other vehicles. It's not Toyota because it gives competition to all the other brands. It's making the overland market a bigger and better place. And I think Ford's doing a good job right now with all their off-road stuff. And I'm personally impressed with the Ford Ranger. So I wanted to go over some gear for the Ford stuff. They use them a lot in Australia, so there's a lot of aftermarket support that actually already exists that's coming over to the United States now that there's more of a market for these things. And this is the first year they came out, right? 2019?
Yeah,
in the United States.
Correct.
And these already existed in Australia, so a lot of the framework and some of the parts already were being built, but now some of that stuff is starting to find its way over here. And I personally think it's a cool platform. So I wanted to go over this truck. And as Luis builds this thing in the future, I want to do more videos on his truck just because it's cool for me to see, it's cool for me to help. I'm trying to broaden the channel out a little bit. I don't want it to just be Toyota specific because I do think the domestic vehicles are doing some cool stuff. Jeep, Ford, Chevy, all of them are doing really cool stuff. And so I wanted to go over and just try out some gear that I didn't have to personally pay for because it is nice not having to pay for some of this stuff to check out sometimes. Whenever he has these things on, it's going to look awesome from behind the grill, but whenever they're off, it doesn't give anybody an idea to go and try to steal something. They won't even be able to tell they're there. So we're going to go through, we're going to install this thing. It shouldn't take us very long. The wiring harness is all here. We'll do a little bit of soldering, and this thing will be up and running because he's headed to the desert this weekend, and he wants to have some lights on the front of his truck.